Okay, well, my name is Sebastian Ferrari. I'm from, well, this doesn't. I'm from Uruguay, but I live in Brazil. But before that, I'm gonna talk about Next.js with Drupal. About what was our experiences with Next, how we solved some of the problems that we came through the past. So as I say, I'm from Uruguay. I live in Brazil right now. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Thaler. I have more than 15 years in web developing. And around 10 years as a Drupal developer. I'm co-founder of React Brazil, which was really huge for us. It was around more than 300 people came. And also I was a DevOps chairman of the Drupal conference Latin America in 2015. So a little brief history about how we came to Next.js. In 2016, we did our first production decoupled Drupal, which is still in production to today. It's not fully decoupled though. It's more a progressive decoupled application. So the SPA is actually running in a theme. Was Drupal 8 in that area, so it was really crazy. Simple controller serving JSON payload, so it was nothing fancy with REST and something like that. And it's just a plain SPA, which we had like a boilerplate that we came up and it was working fine. It was only React with Redux, and we did a library called Redux Boot, which was really cool to reduce the boilerplate of Redux. And it has an integration with the payment gateway. The other one was about for Q&A answers of Natura. Natura is one of the major players of cosmetic in the world. He just bought it Avon, so they are really huge. So it's still in production, so it's still running. It's all running in Akia. Not fully decoupled. Drupal 8, control serving JSON LD. We did a little experiment in that time to try to make like a little schema, but didn't go like forward. Also an SPA, a simple SPA using React with Redux, but this time we choose to use immutable.js and reselect and normalize to have more performance, because we had a lot of more data coming from the server. So immutable.js was like a must-have. So yeah. And then more recently, NC Total, which it's a huge publishing site in Brazil, around 1 million contents, 900 simultaneous users. Sometimes we have more than that. Drupal 8 also, per Solar. We used the Graphical Module before RC, so it was around alpha release. With Apollo Client, Next.js 4, with custom server routing. And we did a lot of editing line. Was really cool experience. We did layout editing line with drag and drop blocks and context, which is using the Slate.js too. And we did a paywall using the AWS Lambda integrated with Drupal. Natura's e-commerce, Next.js on Kubernetes, Drupal 8, Graphical Module with Apollo Client. Everything is more recently right now. We did a graphical gateway using stitching and delegation to aggregate a lot of other schemas, other APIs, other services. Drupal integration with the ATG, Business Control Center for Demographic Segmentation. So we developed a module in Drupal for that. And in the Black Friday, which was a big release, a big relief. So what's Drupal? No, I'm just kidding. What's next? So I was like trying to get like a nice paragraph about what is Next.js, and I came through with the React because Next.js is just a React framework, which takes out all the pain that you will have when you are building universal apps. So yeah, it's like mind blowing. What I'm saying about what I'm saying with what I mean with universal apps. So when you access a site, like a Drupal site, for example, or a JS application that's going to render, it's going to run in your server and serve DOM. You're going to go to the server is going to run the JS application. The JS application is going to deliver, like serve all this DOM for you, and it's going to way back to the browser, right? But then if somebody clicks in some other button or link or something like that, it's going to make its navigation through the SPA. So it's going to be browser rendering before that. After that, sorry. So it's zero configuration, and that was one of the main killers with the other solutions that we find. So why Next? Well, one time I was in Brazil.js Conf in 2014. Brazil.js, it's the largest and biggest event of JavaScript in the world. I think they receive more than 1,000 people. And I was attending the 7 principles of rich web application from Guillermo Rauch, which was really mind blowing at that time. He said, well, first, server rendered pages are not optional. Act immediately on user input. So don't like click and go to the server and go way back to give some feedback. React to data changes. I think that's why they choose React, because they want to be most reactive possible. Control the data exchange with the server. Don't break history, enhance it. So at that time we were using like hashtags in the URL. When the URL changed, it was like crazy. Push code updates, so hot reload and this developer experience, right? And predict behavior, like prefetching whatever you can to make the navigation most like responsive possible. So Next.js was born from those 7 principles. So SSR, server-side rendering, is a first citizen. So when you are writing your first page, which is just one file that you have to do. It's just you're writing JavaScript and you don't know exactly if it's in the server or it's in the browser. It just seamless for you, which is really cool and a little scary sometimes. So Next.js has this collection of best practices for building universal apps. And who is using it, right? Like it's production ready. It has more than 39,000 stars. It's being used. I don't know exactly what that means. They use it by because it's a new metric from GitHub, but it's a lot. So who's using it? So I think the better is to show the site here. You can see like Starbucks, Docker, Netflix, Hulu, GitHub, like Coinbase, Ticketmaster, Uber. So there's a lot of big players here that they are currently using and contributing back to the Next.js. Okay. So yeah. So one other thing that why we are using Next is flexibility. So we can compose Webpack configurations using plugins. Next has this Next plugin thing, which you can like have configuration packages or configurations of things like Sass or CSS in some particular way, or TypeScript, or I don't know, this kind of things. And you can use Next Compose plugins to compose them better. Like I can show that. This is like the normal way that you use Next plugins. Like you are going to result like in a big file with a bunch of these functions that uses other functions and receives other functions, and you have this big object of all the configurations, and you don't know exactly if one configuration is for the image, for example, or is for the width offline. You don't know exactly what it is. So with the Next Compose plugins, you can like compose them like in a tuple way. So you have like it's just an array where you have the plugin and the configuration. The plugin and the configuration is really nice. And the configuration of the Next is really simple too. This is just a next.config.js. It's the only file that you will find to do configurations. Customizing Babel configurations is just as easy as always. You just create the .babel.rc and that's it. It's like this is like the standard way to configure Babel in whatever other project. So it's just like the same. The only thing that you have to do is you have to use the Next Babel preset, which is going to extend all the configurations of Webpack of Babel from the Next. Okay, so customize everything. You have this concept of pages, right? Where you have a directory where you are going to create all your pages, which is they are only like a React component, and then you have this _app.js, for example, where you can customize your root app. If you work with React already, you are really familiar with this pattern. The other one is the _document, where you are going to customize how it's going to render the first HTML, where you can put some script tags or something like that. And there is the errors pages, where you can customize in a universal way. Customize the web server so you can like jump out from the default server that Next uses, and you can do like super dynamic routing. And I'm saying super because, for example, for us was a must-have, because we are hitting the Drupal first to know what kind of page we are going to render to the user, because we don't know exactly if this is a basic page, for example, or an article or a product, or I don't know. It's just an ordinary Express server, so you can use for proxy requests, add middlewares, or Koa, or whatever server that you would like. And I mean, you don't have to do this. It's only if your project has specific needs. This is an example using Express. It's really straightforward. You get this handle in the top of the file, and then when the application is ready, you can set up the Express server, and you can start handling the requests. Performance. Okay, so code splitting in Next.js has been evolved these years, and right now it's like tipping point is like really good, and it's getting better right now in the last release. It's automatic. I mean, he detects what are the common libraries that every page has, and it's going to collect them and put it in one single file, one single bundle. Sorry, chunk. Webpack runtime. Each page earns its own chunk. This is really powerful, because you can create when you create a page, it's going to create a separated chunk only for the code that is needed for that particular page. So that's really good for lazy load when you are navigating. Use import out of the box. It works really great. It's going to create a chunk, separated chunk, when you use the import function. Cache boosting. So at each build that you make, you can like use a CI or something like that. And when you build, it's going to generate a hash with a different name for that that build, and it's going to detect if it's different from before, and it's going to make a different hash. So you don't need like revalidate or expire any JS files because it's just changing the name. And it's going to defer the parsing JS files when rendering the DOM automatically. So this is really good for perceived performance. This is an example analyzing the bundle, all the bundles, all the chunks. So as you can see here, you have the biggest one, which is the commons, because you have the React, and you have static components, and you have React Apollo client, right? You have this common libraries that are shared through the whole app. And then you have the pages, like for example right here, you have the Drupal page, which has a lot of other things. There are other pages right here that they are small. And one day, one of our programmers just said, "Oh, I need to do a player, an audio player, right, for a radio site that we were developing." And he just imported, but the HELS, which was the biggest one here, it's a library for dealing with audio streaming, and the bundle just like got way bigger. I mean, the difference is huge in the Drupal page, right? Just because it was a player that the user could not even like play, like. Is getting all this JavaScript being parsed, right? And the user maybe he won't even play the fucking player. It's a lot of JavaScript. So what we did was really nice feature with the import. We even give it a name for a different chunk. So before this was like the normal import, and then we did the dynamic import. And then the Webpack automatically generates a new chunk. So now when it's loading the page, it's totally lazy load. Okay, so prefetching, it's just as simple as that. You import a component from Next, and then you pass this prefetch prop. So when you are scrolling and the user is actually seeing the link, it's going to prefetch. And it's going to prefetch like everything, like the JS files and stuff. Dev workflow is really good. You can start with one, it's literally one file, and you can start from that. Fast hot reload is really fast, because it only builds what you really need for that page. So if you are working in one page, it's going to build only the chunks needed for that particular page. So it's not going to build like everything. Also, error stack traces. It's really difficult sometimes to know exactly what is giving this error, like why this error is appearing in the screen. So they're using some libraries that make that better. Zero config for TypeScript support. That was in the last one release, in the latest release. Documentation. Documentation is just a README file. I can show you guys. That was one of the most nicest things about Next, that I don't feel like I'm going to discover a lot of new things or particular details of the framework. It's just all here, and it's really straightforward because it's example oriented. So for example, I want to do prefetching pages. So okay, here is the example, which is a project, and here's how it's done. Here's how you can prevent it and stuff like that. So it's just a, I mean, it's just a readme file. Examples oriented, as I said, and there are more than 200 examples in the official repo, and it's getting larger. And they have a guided learning path, which is really good. I totally recommend it. It has a little gamification thing when you are like doing gaining points and stuff. Well, I won't show you because the internet is a little slow. The routing system, file system. So their solution of routing is at first is file system oriented. So when you create a page, like this, like pages and index, that index is going to be the home. Right, and if I create another directory, it's going to be a part of the URL. So it's all oriented, file system oriented. Okay, I can show this later. Let me see if I can. Oh, I have it right here. Okay. So here's an example. Let me see if you guys can see it. So you have the pages directory, right? And then you have the post, for example. So it's /post/ an ID of the post, and then you can have like comments and / the ID of comments. It's really great. This is one of the latest features, the dynamic one. Okay, now they have this API routes too, which I won't show you right now because I'm out of time. Code splitting, as I said, the code splitting is really integrated with the routing system, and the routing is not like totally universal. You have to actually say what bundle or what page is going to render, is going to be used, but you can use the next routes package to achieve that. Serverless ready. Well, they have this concept of function as a page, which is really great. So yeah, it's actually it's a function. It's just a function that you create, which is the React component, and I mean that's it. It turns out as a page. The serverless mode will completely standalone. Will generate completely standalone files which don't require any dependencies. So the cold start should be more fast than having the whole application with all the pages starting at once. They have this hybrid rendering right now, which is, it can like pre-render things that doesn't need data, like external data. So it can like pre-rendering components and pages, or of course, you can like do it on demand. So when to use Next? Well, this is a hard question actually, but it's changing through the time. And I think for me, it's I mean, if you want to use like React right now and you want server side, I mean, Next for me is like is the one to choose. But for me, was more because we have all the projects that we manage and we develop. They have this high volume of content, so we can use static like Jamstack or something like that because there's a lot of content, and we have this high frequency of updates. So we can just like wait for hours or for minutes to publish. Like if it waits. If the editor has to wait more than 5 minutes, that's going to be a pain for us. For example, for breaking news or publishing less than 5 minutes. Server-side rendering, of course, but server-side rendering is not because you need SEO, SEO. It's because it's more performant actually. It's more for the user perception performance because of the first meaningful paint, which you can use the room concept, which is the real user monitoring, metrics, and you can see it actually. You can actually see it as it's really more fast than serve on a white page and then the JavaScript, and the JavaScript want to load and render and stuff. Okay, so next on Drupal Load. So we build a boilerplate. It's just like a bunch of examples and something that you can clone and work. And maybe it's going to accelerate some of the steps for you already. It's really a work in progress thing, so it's not like, oh my god, this is not usable or something like that. No, it's just like a bunch of examples for you. Well, we use the Graphical Module for Drupal for the boilerplate, which is really great. I totally recommend it. And this is the only thing that you have to do to connect the graphical server of Drupal to Next. You just connect it using a higher order component, which is the provider, to your app, to your app file. So universal Drupal route resolver, one of the things that we needed, because as I said, the editors want to have full control about the URL. Sometimes they want to create like an article that starts like slash whatever, you know, and we don't have like patterns like slash news slash and whatever the title, you know. So we really have to hit the Drupal first to know exactly what content is related to that URL. Oh. Yeah, so as I said, we have to deduce that by carrying using the carry route from the GraphQL. And then we use dynamic importing for better code splitting. So we are not like creating this Drupal page that has it all. We do dynamic importing for lazy load. And also we have universal photo for not found errors, both on server and browser. Redirects, we already have a solution in production, but I hadn't time to remove all the context of the project and put it like in a generic way. Okay, so contextual data by route. Contextual data by route, I mean blocks, for example. You want to know which blocks are being exposed through by one route. So we did that. We have this component which resolves by region. You say exactly what region you want to render, and that's it. Then you can register components for each particular block. So we use the graphical fragment pattern, which is every block has its own fragment which describes exactly what's the data that it needs to be to render. And blocks can execute its own carry too. Like it's not like one carry that carries all the data for all the blocks, and you can do like lazy carry. Entry reference field to blocks. That's one of the patterns that we are using in some cases, where it's just an entry reference in your page to blocks, and that's it. Meta text module works really fine with the integration. We have so you can get meta text by a URL and then the entity that is related to that URL. And we created a component for that, which you can use it. I can show this right here. So this is the component. Let's go. Okay. And this is how we use it. So this is a Node article page, as an example. So you can like opt out meta text container. I don't know, yes.
So if I don't want to use this integration, I just remove it, right? Or I put it if I want it. So the only thing that you need to do is pass the path, and that's it. This component, this container, or whatever you want to call it, it's going to carry here to the Drupal. This is the carry that we are using to do that. So it's pretty simple. Okay. So Drupal menus. Well, menus supports many levels, right? You have this depth, and can be used multiple times in the same page. A container. We created a container, a menu container, which it's ready and you can use it. Here's an example creating a main menu, for example, and we are using the render props pattern here because we want to really have control about how we are going to render each item, and if we would like to completely change the layout because it's mobile or something like that. And this is how we use it, like a simple component React. Okay, internal links for SPA navigation for single page application navigation. So the internal links are using the link, the next link component to keep the user navigating through the single page application. So it's not going to hit to the server to render the page, right? Every time that someone clicks in some link. So this is the way that you use it. You just say as Drupal, and then you pass the raw URL that you are actually trying to redirect your user to. HTML tags was a component that we made because we had this issue with the body because we are receiving like HTML already like rendered from Drupal because of this the CKA editor or something like that, and if a link is in the middle of the text and the user clicks on that link, it's going to refresh the page because it's a hard link. It's not like the single page application doesn't know about that particular link. So we did this HTML text component that is going to patch every single link in that text or HTML that you have, and it's going to patch it and it's going to work just fine. So translation is work in progress. Actually, we have a POC that we did last year with that, and it's working fine, but it's really like 2 years ago, actually. And it's really outdated, so we have to update it. We have this example here, which uses the next this is the i18 Next package, which is really good, works really fine, and we did a Drupal module also to make it work, and it's working fine for entity translations. The GraphQL covers everything. So entity translation is not like a big deal to do, but for string translation is a little bit harder. So yeah, there's a lot of work there. Okay, so well, there's a lot of love between Next and Drupal, but we need more love because we need help to get all the edge cases and other stuff that we are missing. We have a lot of things like in other projects that are already in production that we need to like get that out and put it in a repo. So for me, the feature is really right with Next. They have this next release that they are going to implement the Suspense support, because React Suspense is not like yet fully supported by the React because it's not stable right now. But what it is Suspense. The Suspense mode is going to like suspend the render of the component. So it's going to give you a promise of the render of the component. So in that way, we can get rid of the static hoisting of the get initial prop from the Next. So we don't have to like have this function statically being declared that is going to fetch and fetch all the data and weights and stuff. So this is a problem because sometimes you have like other components in more levels, in more depth. So you have these older children that are fetching data, and sometimes you want to wait for those children to fetch all the data that they need. WebAssembly for cross teams. I mean, this is huge for us because sometimes we want to get on board other programmers that doesn't like program JavaScript at all. They program like they use like I don't know like PHP for example, or they use other languages like Go, or I mean there are a lot of other supported languages, backend languages that are supported by WebAssembly. So imagine that you can like run PHP in the browser. That's possible. I mean, desirable, I don't know, but it's possible. And I think it's going to be better serverless passing the time. So to wrap up, I wanted to talk about this approach because it fits really well with the Next.js thing. Because when you are comparing with I don't know like Gatsby or something like that, everyone thinks it's all pre-rendered, so it's just fine. It's just static things, right? But with Next.js, you are going to have this Node.js running somewhere or serverless that has to run and render the page on demand and then deliver to whatever proxy do you have, right? So using the stale content first approach, you will have to revalidate cache on the background. So that means that the user doesn't have to wait for revalidating a cache of the page. Soft purging, please, because there are a lot of CDNs that doesn't support this feature. Soft purging is like you're only expiring your pages. You're not like deleting the pages or the objects in the CDN like this. So there's a benchmark here, which is really good, that compares all the CDNs and how they work with this approach. Not all of them works well. Cloudflare is one of those. So use Fastly or Key CDN or something like that. And we use the Apollo's cache and network fetch policy. So and that's because what happens is when you have this single page application running, right? You are not going to the server every time. You are just fetching the API to get your data to render the page in the browser, right? But when by default, if you're using Apollo, the store is going to store all that data, and it's going to fetch the data that it doesn't have. So if you are doing a query and you are revisiting that page in your navigation, it's not going to go to the server and fetch all the data again and go back. It's going to use what it has in the cache. But I mean, it works and it's fine when you have a small site. But when you have breaking news all the time, like appearing, like in blogs, in a sidebar or something like that, you want to actually like know if that content is really fresh all the time. But we can't like sacrifice the user experience. So we can like show a loading, you know, while we are going to the server to get data that could be already in the browser. So with that policy, it's going to use the cache that it already has in the store, and in the background it's going to go to the server and check if the content is more fresh than it has in the store. So that way you don't sacrifice your user experience. Maybe you will have like a little flashy, you know, like something changes, like a word like you change it, but it's nothing compared to wait a lot and stuff. Oh yeah, and so this service style first is perfect with serverless because you are rendering on demand. So if you are using serverless, you are really using one process to render the page, and then you are going to shut off the Lambda. So you are going to use as much as little effort that you will possibly be. Okay, so just to illustrate how this is done, you can use it adding the stale while revalidate directive in the HTTP headers. So this is how it's by default, right? You when the client is making a request for some page, for example, like it was already visited from by someone. Could be the editor or someone already rendered that page, right? It's going to go to the server, it's going to go to the CDN or the proxy, and then it's going to go to the origin server, right, which is this Node.js that's running, and then it's going to generate the page, and then it's going to go to the CDN, and go back to the CDN, and then go back to the user, right? This is the case when the cache was invalidated, okay, or expired. But with the stale while revalidate, which is the stale first approach, when the user requests the same page, it's going to receive an stale version of that content first, and in the background, the CDN or the proxy, like a varnish, for example, it will do the revalidation in the background. So it's going to go to the server. It's going to be one request, just one request. Even though you have like a lot of traffic, it's going to be just one request that's going to go to the server. If you have Lambda, it's going to get up the Lambda, render the page, and deliver to the CDN, and then the CDN is going to start to serve this fresh content. So yeah, I talk a lot. I think I talk a lot, and my English is not so well trained. So yeah, I'm available to answer some questions. Oh, it's in Portuguese. Sorry, I didn't have time to change that. Any?
Have you seen Next.js used with a site that isn't like a single page app, but more of like a half app, like backend rendered like page?
Like what, for example?
Like Drupal rendering a portion of the page via like PHP, and then applying like React on top of it.
No, I didn't see that, but it's a really interesting idea. Actually, not like partially rendering Drupal, like some part in Drupal, but what they are doing right now with the pair rendering is like it's almost like that. They are receiving like this HTML already rendered when you have this component without needing require fetching data or something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it's a good idea. No? No. Yeah.
I'm curious if it would be helpful for the Drupal community to work on React components that can work across things like Next and Gatsby. I'm thinking particularly about the routing example you shared there, and say the menu example. I was thinking to myself, like, if that problem is solved in Next on Drupal, can those solutions be ported to, say, Gatsby or anything else that's also using React?
Yeah, maybe yes. I don't know. I think I have to talk with somebody for that. But I mean, in Gatsby they have this different approach, right? They have this pre-rendering all of the things, right?
Sure.
So they're not like working with the same approach where they have to like resolve on demand a URL. They already know exactly what's the URL and what's the content in a build time. So it's, I mean, I don't know. It's
but for
something to think.
Something like, say, the menu should.
Yeah, the menu of the meta text, for example, something like that. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Sure. Okay.
In your later example, how are you merging the routing logic that Next.js has with the routing logic that's in Drupal? I think I missed that.
Yeah, I think I didn't show it actually.
Oh yeah, cool. Thanks.
Okay. So this is the next on Drupal project, right? And we have this source right here, and here we have the server, the server, the customized server, right? Because we at the server time we have to go and hit the Drupal and resolve that, right? And then know what component we are going to use. So it's inside of this resolve function here, which receives the request and the response for context. Because we are using, we are returning cache tags too in Next.js, which I didn't mention actually. So we create an Apollo link in the fly with the context there because we need the response in order to put all the cache tags that we collected to render that page. So you can use cache tags as exactly as we're using with Drupal rendering pages. So yeah, I can explain the code, but probably I'm going to take longer. But this is how it's done. We use this route carry here, where we are passing the path to Drupal. Drupal is going to say to us if it is routed inside the Drupal or is something different. Or here, for example, in the internal URL, we can see the path alias and the path internal. And here we can know what's the entity related to that URL. And here is where we register all the component which is going to be handled for that particular route. So in here, inside the routes, we have this little map here, where, well, we are using Lambda a lot here, but here basically what we are doing is, if it is a type node, so the entity must be a node and it must be a bundle article. So if it is that, then it's going to use the article, the Drupal node article page, which is this one, article. Which is this little guy here, which is just a just a normal component, React component. That's it.
Cool.
Yeah. So the redirects is going to happen in that file in the server, JS file. Oh, and it's universal, so that's the same resolver that you saw here in the server is going to run in the browser too. Oh. Yeah. So you can get like not found errors without breaking all the page or something like that.
Cool. Thanks.
You're welcome. About the cache tags. We did a lib here which extracts all the cache tags that all the responses from the Drupal GraphQL is returning. So we are collecting all those and then we are exposing them in a header. So in that way you can use the stale while revalidate, and you can start that page like forever and never revalidate. At least somebody's actually changed it. So we are using the full power of caching of Drupal here, the cache engine.
Cool.
And that's,
you mentioned about you have the redirect problem that you solved in production, but you haven't extracted the canary case yet. Can you explain how it was solved, just on a high level?
Yeah. Well, yes, I can. Let me see here. So in the carry route that I showed earlier. So basically here, this path alias here is going to be the latest one path alias that you have, because in Drupal you can have a bunch of path alias for one internal URL in Drupal, right? So if we compare the path that we are receiving, right, from the request to the path alias that is being received from Drupal GraphQL, and it's different, we are going to make the redirect right there and cache the 301, and that's it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's not that
Right.
that yeah.
Using the data there and just caching that in, right?
Yeah.
Meta tag.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.